What's going on, YouTube? Ferocity here. Hope you guys are doing well. The general sentiment around Warzone lately has been extremely positive. It feels like ever since Verdansk returned, the Warzone community returned to embrace it. And that's a fantastic thing, because Warzone players have been sort of in the dumps for the last several months, even upwards to a year. It feels like Warzone was left behind in favor of multiplayer and zombies, and that sort of sucks. It seems like all of the changes that Call of Duty tried to make for Warzone 2.0 more or less fell flat, and they have been trying to scratch and claw to find an identity ever since. And the smartest thing they did was go back to what worked in 2020 when Warzone originally released. But it's more than just that. Obviously, going back to what worked before, looking at what's tried and true, is definitely one of the reasons why Warzone has regained some prominence, regained an identity. But I think there's more to it than that. The reason why I think Warzone is finally good again is because players within this community can relate to Warzone again. It felt like Warzone was just not trying ever since Warzone 2.0 came out. Whether it was the maps or the overall gameplay, it just all felt lazy, and players were not resonating with it the same way they did prior to Warzone 2.0. So when Verdansk came back out, it wasn't like it was them just throwing together the same map that we had before. Sure, on the surface it's the exact same, but it's the small little details that really show effort and passion went into the reimagining of Verdansk. And I know right now it sounds like I'm glazing this. It's because you can tell they actually tried. So much of Call of Duty right now is just sort of lazy. A lot of the aspects of Call of Duty have become lazy. And it was nice to see them actually take some pride and some care when it came to reimagining Verdansk. I'm sure by now you've seen this photo of the enhanced lighting that we see on Verdansk. This is tremendous. This is way different than what we had in 2020. Definitely a major complaint of Warzone today and Warzone yesterday was the fact that the visibility and lighting overall was poor. That's been changed. They didn't just give us the same map as 2020, they upscaled it. The map looks beautiful. I'm sure you've seen the graphical comparisons. The map looks great. This is what we've been waiting for. Take some pride, take some initiative, do something to make it feel like you actually care about this franchise. That is what resonates with this community. And you see it with the return of Verdansk. You see it with Warzone finally being popular again, finally being played again. I'm not saying it was completely dead prior to the return of Verdansk, but it certainly was nearing life support. People didn't want to play it, and we even heard from Activision, who said that there probably won't be Warzone 3.0 if Verdansk doesn't succeed. Well, now it seems like Warzone 3.0 is inevitable, because Verdansk is succeeding. I don't know if it's hitting their internal measures or their internal markers, but from an outsider looking in, there's a lot more conversation around Warzone. There's a lot more hype around Warzone. It feels like it's sort of back, and that's great. I've always felt that multiplayer and Warzone can coexist, but both of them need dedication separately from the developers. You can't prop one up so the other one fails, and that's what it's felt like with Call of Duty for so long. It feels like they've prioritized one over the other and it just hasn't worked. Now it's working because you finally decided to prioritize Warzone again. You finally decided to put some effort in there, but you didn't let multiplayer suffer as a result. That's fantastic. But there's one other aspect that has made Warzone great again. Sure, the return of a lot of the elements from 2020 was a welcome change. But one of the best things they did was listen to the community. When it came to quality of life fixes, they didn't just stay hard-headed and go down the same path that they've gone down for years. They decided to take into account that this community wanted certain quality of life changes. Things like redeployment balloons, things like the original Gulag. They didn't have to do this, but they did it because they listened to the community. And so much of my issue with Call of Duty as of late is the fact that they don't listen to the community enough. I think it's insanely important to listen to the community and implement the changes that your community wants. Not just looking at metrics and algorithms and deciding based off that. Legitimately listening to the criticism your community has and applying it to the game. Now, of course, this game still has faults. It still has problems. I think we can all agree on that. I don't think anybody is saying that Call of Duty is perfect. It's not. It still has a long way to go to even reach greatness. But it's good again. And that matters. It doesn't feel like Warzone's just going to fall by the wayside with whatever's coming in 2025. It might actually be propped up with a brand new map, and what I hope is a great map, a memorable map, something that we can talk about. But it's more than just maps. It's about the gameplay experience. And right now in Warzone, it's back to where it used to be. It's an experience again. It doesn't just feel like big map TDM. And that's great. That's where Warzone needs to be. But this is bigger than Warzone. This is about Call of Duty as a whole. What can Call of Duty learn from Warzone to make it really great again? And I hate that term because you guys know why. There's stuff going on in the world that I don't want to use this platform to talk about. But nonetheless, there's definitely lessons to be learned from what has happened with Warzone, even since its inception, to take over to multiplayer, to take over to the mainline games and say, this is sort of what we need to do. We need to reintegrate passion into the game. We need to have it feel like we're actually creative and not just regurgitating AI slop. We need to listen to the community. And I cannot stress enough how important that is. Just doing what you think is going to work or what the algorithms are telling you is only going to resonate with players so much. But by listening to them, by implementing what they are asking, I think that's going to matter. There is something to be said, though, about developers being able to complete their vision, right? At the end of the day, they're trying to complete a game that they've been working on for years, and I get that. But what makes a successful game is when the two can coexist. And we saw in MW2 back in 2022 that when you focus solely on your vision as a development studio, it's going to fall flat with your community. There were easy, simple changes that MW2 could have made to its overall gameplay experience that would have made it better. But unfortunately, they decided to stay hard-headed and didn't make those changes, those necessary changes that would have made the game better. And we saw all those changes be made in MW3, and there's a reason why MW3 is held up as a pretty decent multiplayer, because they made the core changes that we were asking for. Weird how that happens. But that's the key here. Is I think it's important to listen to your community, to find that middle ground between listening to your community and realizing your completed vision. So that's what I think has helped Warzone. I think the fact that we've seen some real passion behind that project, but not only that, they've listened to the community, they've implemented those changes, and they've really crafted something that I think resonates with this community again. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Did Verdansk coming back to Warzone get you to go back to it, or did you just kind of forget about Warzone altogether because Black Ops 6 is too much fun? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in that comment section. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.